My colleague, Paul Sisco, has more.
Liberia achieved its first democratic transition of power in more than 70 years in 2017. George Weah, a former FIFA Player of the Year and senator, was elected president in a runoff ballot against Vice President Joseph Boakai, garnering 65% of the vote. The 51-year-old Weah replaces Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Africa's first female president, who's retiring after 2 terms. There was a stunning turn of events in Zimbabwe, where Emerson Mnangagwa was elevated from vice president and sworn in as president on November 24th, replacing longtime leader Robert Mugabe, who held power 37 years. Kenya's rocky political ride eased with President Uhuru Kenyatta being sworn in for a second term. Kenyatta defeated opposition candidate Raila Odinga by a slim margin in last year's first presidential poll. But the nation's Supreme Court annulled the ballot, citing vote-counting irregularities by the Electoral Commission as the primary reason. Odinga withdrew from a second presidential vote, urging his supporters to boycott the polls, and he says he's establishing an alternative government. More than 70 people were killed during election-related violence. In January of 2017, Nana Akufo-Addo was inaugurated as Ghana's new president. He defeated incumbent John Mahama in a peaceful vote held in December 2016. Among Africa's biggest surprises, Gambian President Adama Barrow won a December 2016 vote by a slim margin, defeating longtime President Yahya Jammeh. Jammeh initially graciously conceded, only to quickly change his mind. But the Gambian voters didn't change their minds, and Barrow was inaugurated president of Gambia January 19, 2017. Angola's new president is former Defense Minister João Lourenço, rising from the ruling party of José dos Santos. Dos Santos, who held power for 38 years, has been accused of leading one of the most corrupt regimes in Africa. Rwanda's Paul Kagame, a powerful force since the end of the 1994 genocide, claimed 98% of the presidential vote in August, often harassed opposition Green Party candidate Frank Habineza, and independent Philip Mapena only received 2% of the votes cast. Kagame has told his supporters he could remain in power until 2034 if he chooses to, based on constitutional changes lifting term limits passed by referendum in 2015. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni still holds power. The presidential age limit of 75 was lifted last week. The constitutional amendment was passed by ruling party MPs and signed behind closed doors by Museveni on December 27th. Finally, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, President Joseph Kabila is likely to remain in power for the foreseeable future. The United Nations has called on Kabila to abide by a December 2016 agreement to step down after elections that were once promised for 2017. In November, the nation's Electoral Commission announced a new presidential election has been rescheduled for December 2018. Meanwhile, dozens of people have died in a wave of street protests against Kabila and his government over the election issue. Paul Sisco, VOA News, Washington.